That night they sat in the living room and read as usual. Shepard kept himself glumly entrenched behind the Sunday New York Times. He wanted to recover his good humor, but every time he thought of the rejected shoe, he felt a new charge of irritation. He did not trust himself even to look at Johnson. He realized that the boy had refused the shoe because he was insecure. Johnson had been frightened by his own gratitude. He didn't know what to make of the new self he was becoming conscious of. He understood that something he had been was threatened, and he was facing himself and his possibilities for the first time. He was questioning his identity. Grudgingly, Shepard felt a slight return of sympathy for the boy. In a few minutes, he lowered his paper and looked at it. Johnson was sitting on the sofa, gazing over the top of the encyclopedia. His expression was trance-like. He might have been listening to something far away. Shepard watched him intently, but the boy continued to listen and did not turn his head. The poor kid is lost, Shepard thought. Here he had sat all evening, sullenly reading the paper, and had not said a word to break the tension. "Rufus," he said. Johnson continued to sit, stock still, listening. "Rufus," Shepard said in a slow, hypnotic voice, "you can be anything in the world you want to be. You can be a scientist or an architect or an engineer or whatever you set your mind to. And whatever you set your mind to, you can be the best of its kind." He imagined his voice penetrating to the boy in the black caverns of his psyche. Johnson leaned forward, but his eyes did not turn. On the street, a car door closed. There was a silence. Then a sudden blast from the doorbell. Shepard jumped up and went to the door and opened it. The same policeman who had come before stood there. The patrol car waited at the curb. "Let me see that boy," he said. Shepard scowled and stood aside. "He's been here all evening," he said. "I can vouch for it." The policeman walked into the living room. Johnson appeared engrossed in his book. After a second, he looked up with an annoyed expression, like a great man interrupted at his work. "What was that you were looking in at in that kitchen window over on Winter Street about half an hour ago, Bud?" the policeman asked. "Stop persecuting this boy," Shepard said. "I'll vouch for the fact he was here. I was here with him." "You heard him," Johnson said. "I've been here all the time." "It ain't everybody makes tracks like you," the policeman said, and eyed the clubfoot. "They couldn't be his tracks," Shepard growled, infuriated. "He's been here all the time. You're wasting your own time and you're wasting ours." He felt the hours seal his solidarity with the boy. "I'm sick of this," he said. "You people are too damn lazy to go out and find whoever is doing these things. You come here automatically." The policeman ignored this and continued looking through Johnson. His eyes were small and alert in his fleshy face. Finally, he turned toward the door. "We'll get him sooner or later," he said, "with his head in a window and his tail out." Shepard followed him to the door and slammed it behind him. His spirits were soaring. This was clearly what he had needed. He returned with an expectant face. Johnson had put the book down and was sitting there, looking at him slyly. "Thanks," he said. Shepard stopped. The boy's expression was predatory. He was openly leering. "You ain't such a bad liar yourself," he said. "Liar," Shepard murmured. Could the boy have left and come back? He felt himself sicken. Then a rush of anger sent him forward. "Did you leave?" he said furiously. "I didn't see you leave." The boy only smiled. "You went up to the attic to see Norton," Shepard said. "No," Johnson said. "That kid is crazy. He don't want to do nothing but look through that stinking telescope." "I don't want to hear about Norton," Shepard said harshly. "Where were you?" "I was sitting on that pink can by my own self," Johnson said. "There weren't no witnesses." Shepard took out his handkerchief and wiped his forehead. He managed to smile. Johnson rolled his eyes. "You don't believe in me," he said. His voice was cracked the way it had been in the dark room 2 nights before. "You make out like you got all this confidence in me, but you ain't got any. When things get hot, you'll fade like the rest of 'em." The crack became exaggerated, comic. The mockery in it was blatant. "You don't believe in me. You ain't got no confidence," he wailed. "And you ain't any smarter than that cop. All that about tracks? That was a trap. There weren't any tracks. That whole place is concreted in the back, and my feet were dry." Shepard slowly put the handkerchief back in his pocket. He dropped down on the sofa and gazed at the rug beneath his feet. The boy's clubfoot was set within the circle of his vision. The pieced-together shoe appeared to grin at him with Johnson's own face. He caught hold of the edge of the sofa cushion and hid his knuckles turned white. A chill of hatred shook him. He hated the shoe, hated the foot, hated the boy. His face paled. Hatred choked him. He was aghast at himself. He caught the boy's shoulder and gripped it fiercely as if to keep himself from falling. "Listen," he said. "You looked in that window to embarrass me. That was all you wanted, to shake my resolve to help you. But my resolve isn't shaken. I'm stronger than you see. I'm stronger than you are. I'm stronger than you, and I'm going to save you. The good will triumph. Not when it ain't true," the boy said. "Not when it ain't right." "My resolve isn't shaken," Shepard repeated. "I'm going to save you." Johnson's look became sly again. "You ain't going to save me," he said. "You're going to tell me to leave this house. I did those other 2 jobs, too. The first one, as well as the one I done when I was supposed to be in the picture show." "I'm not going to tell you to leave," Shepard said. His voice was toneless, mechanical. "I'm going to save you." Johnson thrust his head forward. "Save yourself," he hissed. "Nobody can save me but Jesus." Shepard laughed curtly. "You don't deceive me," he said. "I flushed that out of your head at the reformatory. I saved you from that, at least." The muscles in Johnson's face stiffened. A look of such repulsion hardened on his face that Shepard drew back. The boy's eyes were like distorting mirrors, in which he saw himself made hideous and grotesque. "I'll show you," Johnson whispered. He rose abruptly and started headlong for the door as if he could not get out of Shepard's sight quick enough. But it was the door to the back hall he went through, not the front door. Shepard turned on the sofa and looked behind him where the boy had disappeared. He heard the door to his room slam. He was not leaving. The intensity had gone out of Shepard's eyes. They looked flat and lifeless, as if the shock of the boy's revelation were only now reaching the center of his consciousness. "If he would only leave," he murmured. "If he would only leave now of his own accord."